Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I am filming this in early May, which coincides with the time that many of you are probably thinking about what it takes to have successful internships this summer and help your interns have meaningful experiences with your organization. I will take a time here to review our agenda. So before we dive into the content, let's review our agenda for the session. I will provide context on how students benefit from high impact internships, and then review what employers can gain from providing those internships. And then we will highlight 7 areas where you can integrate high impact practices into your internships. Given our short time together, this is going to be a quick overview, but I will share some additional resources that you can review for more in-depth advice on specific areas. And I did want to share a little bit more about myself. So my name is Eli. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the internship program manager at the UW Career and Internship Center. The CNIC is a centralized career center on campus, and we provide career guidance to students in nearly all majors and school years. My role is focused specifically on supporting campus partners in developing great internship programs and reflection courses for academic credit. And I also oversee the administration of specialized scholarship programs to support Huskies engaged in experiential learning. I've also had the pleasure of interning in multiple roles in the field of public health, from data analysis and contact tracing to program evaluation and health communication. And those experiences are why I really encourage students to take a chance and explore during their internships. And now that you've met me, I will take us back to our content here. So why does experiencing good management at an internship matter for students? Research shows that internship participation is highly beneficial for students across multiple identities and backgrounds. The most immediate benefit is that they get a chance to apply what they are learning in a real world setting. They are introduced to workplace norms that can ultimately make them more employable upon graduation. And despite the time commitment and energy required to succeed in an internship, participating in one actually increases students' GPAs and makes them more likely to stay in school and finish their degree on time. For some students, it can even decrease the amount of time that they need to complete their degree, as they may get academic credit for their internship or focus on meeting graduation requirements so that they can move on to their first entry-level job. And while internships are what we'll be focusing on today, I did want to mention that there are other experiences that classify as high impact practices, which scaffold student learning, encourage community building, and support students throughout their college careers. Those can include first-year seminars, working on collaborative projects in their classes, or completing undergraduate research under a faculty member or a postdoc researcher. So diving deeper into high impact practices, we find that there are common characteristics between them. Active engagement and successful participation demands time and effort from the student. They need to be meaningfully interacting with faculty or other students, and they're asked to collaborate with those that they are dissimilar to. High impact practices focus on activating learning outside of the classroom, removing it from that purely theoretical setting. And finally, the student receives frequent and substantive feedback about their performance. Similarly, a truly outstanding internship will incorporate high impact practices at all stages of the internship program. I'll walk through those specifics later in the presentation, but you can always use this as a starting point when you are evaluating how you may improve your internship. Maybe there are ways to foster more collaboration or have additional check-ins for the intern to get that regular feedback. As I mentioned earlier, students recognize the importance of internships in building career readiness. As an intern manager, you are mentoring students and providing them with a skill set beyond the technical aspects of the role. The National Association of Colleges and Employers, or NACE, organizes career readiness into 8 distinct competencies that can be used as a framework for developing students in your internship program. And all students are unique, so you may find that certain students gravitate to specific competencies over others depending on the roles offered at your organization or the pre-existing notions that students may have about specific fields. And while we have a whole webinar dedicated to preparing for Gen Z in the workplace, I did want to take some time to provide a brief overview of who Gen Z is and how that translates into workplace values. The overwhelming majority of Huskies, especially our undergraduates, are part of Gen Z and were born at the tail end of the 90s into the mid 2010s. On a demographic level, they are the most diverse generation in the US today, being the last generation expected to be predominantly white. As our nation continues to grow, there are more children from immigrant backgrounds, there are greater numbers that come from low income backgrounds, and more of them that identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community. Because they have witnessed historical, social, and economic changes, including the election of the first Black president, the housing bubble collapse in the mid 2000s, and then navigated high school and early college during the pandemic, their workplace values tend to demand more transparency and accountability while also leaning into community building. Gen Z wants to see your organization's commitment to social impact, diversity, and equity efforts, and wants mentors that reflect their own backgrounds. They also really want to feel like their work has a direct impact either on your organization or the community at large. And with more internships now paying their interns, students also want to feel like their efforts are being fairly compensated, both financially, but also in the organization, investing in their overall career growth. Finally, as loneliness and isolation became the norm during the pandemic, many students are also interested in building that community and connecting with others. And there are ways to connect those workplace values with the characteristics of high impact practices, allowing you to meet students where they are so you can better prepare them for a career at your organization or beyond. And I'll talk about that shortly. So now that we've covered the student context, let's look a little deeper at how being a good intern manager can also benefit your organization. NACE conducted a student survey with over 900 students nationwide to determine what factors were correlated with high satisfaction in their internships. As you can see, the majority of students mentioned the community and professional development aspects, feeling welcome at the organization, having some sort of mentor that they could ask questions to, and feeling like they were engaging in meaningful work were the most important factors driving overall satisfaction with their internships. While adequate compensation piece is less important, I do want to note that this survey is about 5 years old at this point, and in our center, our handshake data shows a clear trend of paid opportunities receiving double the amount of applications over unpaid internships. Having high intern satisfaction influences a few different things. It will influence how committed your students feel at your organization and how productive they are throughout their internship. It will also influence your overall reputation as an employer and can impact your recruitment process and ultimately your conversion rate with interns as they pursue that full-time employment. The commitment and productivity of your interns is a great way to tie back to high impact practices. By cultivating meaningful interactions and projects, your intern can feel like they're making an impact while also gaining that sense of belonging and connection with your organization. Interns who feel connected to their site are also more likely to return in future years or avoid the attrition that can happen between the internship offer date and the actual start date. On a related note, when interns understand what your organization values and how those values are displayed at different levels of the organization, they are also more likely to be engaged and productive. No one wants to show up and just do busy work. So making it clear that the work that they're doing is valuable to the organization is important and may be something that you need to refer to throughout the entire internship. As I'm sure you are all aware, students talk to each other. They will talk about how their internship went, both in person and on social media. So this can be on professional spaces like Glassdoor or LinkedIn, but it could also be through their personal profiles over Twitter or Instagram. And while you can't always ensure that every single intern has a good experience, a pattern of disgruntled interns could hurt your chances in attracting great students in the future. Ultimately, students trust the experiences that others share much more than they trust your organization's marketing and recruiting materials. A related aspect here is the conversion rate, or how many of your interns are converted into full-time hires upon graduation. Nationwide, a little over half of eligible interns were converted to full-time hires last year. And as you can see, the factors that influence an intern's decision to stay at the organization. As a quick explainer, the odds ratio is comparing interns who stated that they were satisfied at their internship to those who did not report that same level of satisfaction with their internship. So, interns who were satisfied with their internship were 6.9 times more likely to accept a job offer from their site compared to those who were neutral or unsatisfied. And the factor that really drives internship satisfaction is that they had friendly and or helpful colleagues while at their site. When looking just at conversion, the factor with the highest correlation, the intern wanting a career in the same industry, is somewhat out of your control. But if your organization is really focused on creating that strong recruitment pipeline and wants to maximize conversion rate, this is something that you could integrate into your hiring process. In the application and in the interview phase, you can try to confirm with students that they're interested in the specific field rather than just the role. And I do want to quickly note that this is not major specific. There could be students who are pursuing a major and maybe realize their junior or senior year that they want to do a career pivot and break into a different field. So it's important to have students explain in their own words why they're interested in interning at your organization. And while the correlation has somewhat weakened in recent years, you can see that at the 1 year and the 5 year marks, hires who have interned with their employer, so internal interns, are more likely to stay with their employer than hires who interned at other organizations, external interns, or hires with no previous internship experience. And we can speculate about a number of different reasons why that might be, such as having a stronger understanding of the role or the field, having pre-existing connections with employees at the site, or just being more familiar with the resources available to them. So now that we've discussed the benefits of high impact practices for both students and employers, let's think through some of the areas where you can integrate those principles into your internship program. High impact areas span the entirety of the internship program, from the initial onboarding phase to the final offboarding phase. And while they're presented as distinct areas for us to talk about today, they are often interconnected and may actually overlap depending on how your internship program is structured. So to start off, let's talk about onboarding your intern. This process helps students feel welcome, valued, but is also a critical step in expectation setting and ensuring that both your interns and their supervisors are aware of their responsibilities and have clear expectations of each other. And there are many ways where you can integrate characteristics of high impact practices into your onboarding process. It could start with a first day checklist or creating a 30, 60, 90-day plan that mirrors what you have for full-time staff. I would also recommend that you share some sort of written records of your expectations for your interns so that they can reference it. This could be either like a PDF that they access as soon as they start orientation or a physical handbook that they keep at their workstation. Again, mirroring what you already have in place for full-time staff so that they know how to call out sick, who they report to, and what the work-life expectations are. And finally, I would also encourage you to assign your interns a buddy at their site who is different than their direct supervisor. This could be a returning intern, someone who's maybe in a similar role early in their career, or even another staff member who can collaborate with that department frequently. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, if you have a long lag time between the intern hire and start dates, it's important to reach out regularly and keep that connection strong to minimize that risk of attrition. Consider ways that you can make them feel welcome, have them start making connections, or learn more about the organization. So internships are distinct from entry-level jobs, and they are first and foremost focused on learning. Having that focus on building or refining skills provides interns with the beginnings of their professional development journeys. And they're very cognizant of the fact that they will need to continue learning throughout their career and may even need additional certifications to advance. So we'll talk about projects in just a moment, but broadly speaking, when reviewing learning within your internship program, think about what spaces the intern is currently participating in. They may already have one-on-ones with their direct supervisor, but are there times when joining an all-hands meeting or attending professional development opportunities in conjunction with your full-time staff could be beneficial? If you have the bandwidth to tailor the internship to each student, you could also ask them to share one or two things that they really want to learn in their internship and identify how you can help them meet that learning goal. And this is where you can lean on supervisors, mentors, and buddies that the intern is regularly interacting with by having them facilitate those conversations with interns about goal setting and creating SMART goals for the learning goals that they want to achieve. And on a related note, having SMART goals for your student can help define clear projects that the intern wants to work on. So high impact practices consist of experiences that are high effort, but also feel meaningful. And while menial work is going to be present in any role, that should not be the majority of the work that your intern is doing while you're there at your organization. Creating meaningful projects for your interns will also influence how satisfied they feel with their internship experience. When your intern establishes their learning goals, that can be a time to adapt projects that they'll be working on throughout their internship. And ideally, this is something that is low effort on your end, as the job description and the hiring process are aligned in a way where the intern is aware of the key aspects of the role and doesn't come in with wildly different expectations of what they'll be doing. Building out their projects, give them enough support where they can succeed, and try to link them back to the larger goals at your organization. So going back to career readiness, I want to acknowledge that students can overestimate their proficiency in certain competencies, especially if they've interned at multiple organizations throughout their college career. And this is where relationships and networking can provide that additional mentorship and support for students in building those skills. When NACE asked employers to rate last year's graduates on the career readiness competencies, you can see that all of the competencies fall within the somewhat proficient category, but communication and professionalism are the ones that can be felt acutely by employers in the day-to-day interactions with recent graduates. During their internship, you can create spaces where students can enhance communication and professional skills by giving them connections to colleagues in the field. Again, tying that back to high impact practices and Gen Z's workplace values, this will also create spaces where they feel more connected to your organization and feel like a valued community member. If possible, assigning a collaborative project throughout their internship or inviting them to have coffee chats with colleagues can be a low stakes way to create those opportunities. And interns benefit from exposure to various teams and organizational levels, gaining insight into the broader operations and goals of the company. Creating internships where students have the ability to work on diverse tasks and learn new tools offers interns a chance to expand their skill set, enhancing their professional capabilities and adaptability overall. Because exposure can be integrated into all aspects of your internship program, here are just a few examples of activities that build exposure. So learning directly from leaders in an organization can plant seeds about professional development and conversion after their internship. Encourage the interns to attend meetings related to their project, especially if they work on cross-functional teams, so that they learn how to contribute to meaningful discussions. And while it can seem tedious, tasking interns with writing meeting agenda and minutes could hone organizational skills and attention to detail. So many of these will contribute to intern satisfaction and whether they want to convert to full-time. Similar to exposure, feedback is a component that happens across many aspects of an internship. Students often don't know they're doing anything wrong unless the supervisor is able to have that honest and constructive conversation about the performance with them. And learning how to take those comments and refine it into their workflow, connect with colleagues, and adapt is going to be critical for any student to succeed in any future role. Depending on the nature of the internship and your organizational culture, feedback can be integrated either in the moment or during regular check-ins between the supervisor and the intern. I would also highly recommend having an informal performance review about halfway through the internship so that your supervisor and the intern can realign expectations, touch base about upcoming project timelines, and address any lingering issues. And integrating a final performance evaluation to the offboarding process can be helpful for both your organization and the intern, as you can review key milestones, assess the strengths of the intern, and have an opportunity to ask them about any future plans. And because positive feedback is also a component, please celebrate the intern's wins along the way. Recognizing their effort and successes will help with motivation, engagement, and feeling supported by the organization. The final high impact practice I want to talk about is reflection. The ability for your intern to self-reflect on their own work helps them become more self-directed and also allows them to identify areas of growth and determine ways to address it. Reflection also really ties well into the feedback piece, as you can engage your intern during regular check-ins and encourage them to track their progress. If you feel comfortable, consider offering to review their resume or to serve as a reference as they seek roles following their time with you. And we have guiding questions and checklists on our websites for students to reference after their internship, where they can also spend some of their own time reflecting on performance and finding out whatever that next step might be in their professional journey. So we've covered a lot in a short amount of time. So I do want to zoom out for a minute and review all those different pieces that we chatted about. So high impact practices in an internship benefit both interns and the organization. There are many ways to integrate high impact practices into your internship program, and it does not need to be a huge transformation. Incremental changes with that intentional focus from managers and the organization leadership team is what's going to create that awesome experience for your interns. And as you're thinking about those incremental changes, I did want to briefly review some additional resources that are available to you. We have ample resources on our website for both students and employers. I'm also happy to provide consultations as questions arise. And if you're interested in more specialized student populations, such as engineering majors or students in the School of Business, you can reach out to those career services directly. If you have any questions on how you can get involved with the Career Internship Center this academic year, you can reach out to us by emailing cicevents@uw.edu. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for tuning in.